everybody. Welcome back into Cherry Picking. Very exciting episode. Joined by two very knowledgeable hockey minds, I would say. I don't know if they would necessarily agree with that on a day-to-day basis, but we'll go with that. Both work for the NHL and do a ton of other things. Jonny Lazarus and Dua. Thank you guys for coming on. Johnny, how are things been, brother?
You know what, Ryan? I was having a really rough Monday, but the fact that you put my name above Anna's just makes it a little bit better. So yeah, I'm feeling a little bit better, but I was late to morning skate, missed the entire thing, got a $150 parking ticket, and my ex posted a new guy. So pretty rough day in my life. But how about you guys?
I'm good. Definitely don't have my ex posting anything that would set me off kind of this morning, which is Anna. What are your immediate thoughts on how Johnny's Monday is going?
I'll let him have his name first. I was really pissed off when he said that, but given how his Monday's gone, you know, he needs a win. He deserves a little win to start off.
Absolutely. That's fair. That's nice of you, Anna. But we're here. Recap the madness that was the NHL Trade Deadline. A lot of which did not happen on Friday, especially some of the bigger moves, I guess you could say, the Rangers made, apart from maybe one of them. I guess they didn't really do anything that big. But starting into it, Johnny, obviously you do a lot covering the Rangers. They acquired Alex Wennberg from Seattle, Jack Roslovic, Chad Rudiwheel from the Penguins, Nick Patan that I didn't even see. I honestly only saw that this morning. They really didn't. Yeah, I saw it, which is surprising. He could. Who knows what he'll do in the playoffs? Probably nothing, but that's okay.
He's in Hartford though, so it's fine.
True. There you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Rangers didn't really have to give up a ton. They got a lot of money retained from Seattle and Columbus in those deals. So what's your overall grade of kind of the transactions, and what are your thoughts now of the team as they kind of head for the playoffs?
I mean, it's so different. Like, my thoughts when it was happening during the day was like, how are they not making a splash? Like, what are we doing here? Like, there's so many names available. Like, why are they not taking a shot? I was pretty vocal about it, like leading into deadline day, about going for it right now, and risking getting rid of assets for the future. But the more I think about it and the more I look at it, obviously as time goes on, opinions change, right? Like, it's normal. But they did fill all the holes they needed to fill. Like, they got an upgrade at first line right wing. Is it the biggest name in the world in Jack Roslovic? No, but he's a good player. And, you got to give him some time to adjust and see what he can do. They got that third line center and Alex Wennberg. Chad Rudiwheel, we haven't seen yet. He'll probably play tonight. So no judgment yet on him. But he's just a solid depth piece for the blue line. And, I still think, like, just the biggest additions have been the ones we've already seen throughout the year. Like, Heedle's gone down, obviously, which sucks, but Edstrom, Rempe, Brodzinski, all these players have come up and performed. And the Rangers, they had a 2-month stretch where things were rough, but they've been in first place the entire year. Like, so it's tough to say they like flopped at the deadline. Like, I wouldn't go as far as saying that, but when they're linked to a name like Gensel or Vetrano or even like Buchnevich and they don't come out with anything, and not only do they not come out with anything, Carolina gets Gensel and Florida adds Okposo and Tarasenko. So it's like, while and I know this is a long version, I'm sorry for the long-winded answer.
Oh, it's okay.
While the Rangers did get better, everyone around them got even better. So that's why it's like, it's hard to judge, right? So that's my piece.
I would agree with like pretty much everything you said. I think it would have been like what Rutherford and Pat Verbeek were asking for Vetrano and Buchnevich from their respective. I think there was just a lot. I don't think necessarily the Rangers or any team had the package to go the other way for those kind of players. Anna, what are your kind of thoughts on, the Rangers first in the Metro right now? As Johnny kind of said, been first in the Metro for the entire season, but how do you kind of see the East kind of shaping up after what some of the bigger dogs kind of did at the deadline?
I mean, last year when we were looking at the Rangers at the deadline, they were the team that made all the splashes, right? They had Tarasenko, they had Patrick Kane, and it didn't work for them, whereas they went on a pretty deep run very recently without any of those big name pieces. So you never really know who's a winner or loser at the trade deadline until all is said and done. And the way the Rangers have played so far has really impressed me. I think their team's coming together. They're figuring out all of the missing pieces within their lineup internally, I would say. And Igor Shesterkin, you got to give him some credit for how much he's turned his game around. That was a big issue for the Rangers, and now he's playing good hockey. You're seeing that team look pretty good, but the Carolina Hurricanes are sneaking up, and Jake Guentzel isn't even back in the lineup yet, guys. That team has looked dominant. They were really dominant against the New Jersey Devils at the Rock this past weekend. They absolutely crushed the Calgary Flames. And Kuznetsov, I think, is another big ad that we haven't mentioned yet. Like, if he's playing with Guentzel on their second line, that's been Carolina's biggest issue. They don't have a second line center. Now they got a second line center who's won a Stanley Cup, might be playing with Jake Guentzel. That's a very, very solid top six that the Hurricanes have. So when I'm looking in the Metro, I feel like the Hurricanes might catch up. And Johnny said this too. Like, I think the Hurricanes might catch up and take over the Rangers.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a huge possibility at this point. I think that's a move we don't necessarily always see the Canes make, because they always go for guys that they can kind of re-sign. And I think at this point, it's relatively undetermined to see if Guentzel will stay in Carolina after this year. But I think they're making a good push at the right time. And I know you do a lot of stuff for the Devils, but you still, I know we went to school together in Toronto. So I'd love to get your thoughts kind of on how the Leafs deadline day, because obviously I've heard great opinions, terrible opinions, obviously being here in Toronto. But they picked up Lyubushkin, Joel Edmondson, kind of addressed their need at defense, and then also picked up Cade Weber, kind of a prospect from Carolina, who I don't know if, Johnny, would you have ever played against him when you were?
He's much younger, but I've seen him play this year at BU. And I also want to ask a question to both of you as an outsider before Anna kind of asks. Like, I feel like no matter what Toronto does, it's never looked at as a positive.
It depends which Toronto fan you ask, to be honest.
I just feel like all the discourse is always like, come on, like, how do we not do that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, no matter what.
Yeah, there's always going to be that negative fan who will be like, these moves don't do anything. But we're still not going to be able to compete with the rest of the East or the West, for that matter, if they make it to the Cup final, which I do agree. I just don't necessarily think they could have made a lot of the deals that the Leafs fans wanted them to make. They don't really have a ton of draft picks. Their prospects, they have like 2 good ones, and they were pretty clear about them not wanting to move them at this point. So I don't know. It's hard to judge it, I would say, at this point, considering what other teams did. But Anna, what are your kind of thoughts on the Leafs after this deal, or after the deadline?
I feel like the deadline wasn't too eventful for the Leafs. I don't hate what they did. I like the pieces that they picked up. Lyubushkin's a big one that I think was probably my favorite move that they made, just to bolster their lineup a little bit. But when I'm looking at the Toronto Maple Leafs this year, guys, like the deciding factor for me isn't anyone at the deadline or anyone who's even been on the roster as of late. It's Joe Woll. Like, I think he's going to be the key factor in this team turning things around. He's proven how good of a goaltender he can be, and that's always been the issue. The Leafs go out, they get all these star guys, and they have such a solid core, and they have the best of the best in the NHL, and then they get goalies that just cannot make a save. Like, Samsonov's not a reliable goaltender. They brought in Matt Murray a couple of years ago, and I thought the Leafs might even miss the playoffs with the tandem that they were rolling out, because they just don't have the support in their back end to actually be in the playoffs and make a deep run. But Joe Woll is like the piece that I've been waiting to join this Leafs roster for years and years and years, and he's finally here. He's finally healthy. So I feel like that return is what's going to shape out to be the most impactful thing for the Leafs for the rest of the season. And the depth adds, they're fine. They're a good team. Like, I have no issue with their forward group. I have no issue with some of their defensemen when they play well, right? Like, even at certain times this year, Jake McCabe's played well, Morgan Riley's played well, Liljegren, we haven't even seen his full potential. So they have the pieces they need. The goaltending was my only question. They didn't have to go out to address it. They got this guy back. I like the way the Leafs are looking down the stretch.
Yeah, imagine they went out and just got Allmark just somehow from Boston, like last minute. That would have been awesome to see that happen, and just see Leafs fans totally think that they're Stanley Cup bound at that point. But
was that talked about?
It was near the end. I was actually just listening to a piece Friedman was on Sportsnet, and he said there was a deal in the Eastern Conference for Allmark, but it might have been one of the teams that was on his no trade list. So
I heard today it was LA.
If you're in Toronto, though, Johnny, like, at some point, everyone's being
That's the same thing with the Rangers, though, I feel like.
Everyone's on the mark. Yeah, I know. Sidney Crosby coming to the Rangers.
Yeah.
Tweets on the internet. That's what Toronto is. They think everyone wants to play in Toronto.
Yeah. And John, with like you being very involved with the Rangers, do you think the Leafs at this point are like a threat to the Rangers in the playoffs, or would you still think the Rangers are a better built roster?
I mean, with the way the Rangers have played the Leafs this year, they've struggled. So, I would say they're definitely a threat. Playoffs, I think it's a little bit different. Had they played twice this year, I think, right? It was the shootout a couple weeks ago, and then
Yeah.
Toronto came here and spanked them like 7-3 or something like that, right? Like Matthews at a 4-point night, I think. It's so crazy. Like, it's funny. I feel like now that you kind of work closely with teams, like a lot of games like blend in together more than as opposed to like being a fan. Like when you're a fan, for some reason I feel like when you're a fan, you like kind of know it better in some way. I don't know if that is a really stupid thing to say, but yeah, I kind of regret that already. But you know what I mean? Like you're just like kind of way more emotionally invested in it. So it's just easy to have that memory. As opposed to like watching every game and looking for different storylines and whatnot. But yes, back to the original question, I think the Leafs are certainly a threat. But like, if you're asking me going into a 7-game series, I wouldn't be worried. It's just with what we've seen so far in the regular season, I'd say the Leafs are probably an advantage, maybe.
Okay. I like that take. Interesting. All right. So looking at kind of like the other teams that made a lot of noise at the deadline, Colorado, a lot in the West for sure, but some in the East with the Hurricanes, Anna talked about that as well, but Vegas again kind of did that same thing. And then the Jets, even I know the Jets kind of really only made like 2 moves, but they're 2 pretty big moves, getting Monahan like a month ago now, it seems like right around the All-Star break. And then the Oilers too obviously made some moves to kind of just help with their depth. So who do you think, what team, or I guess should I say, kind of made the most impactful moves you'd say that really made their team better? Johnny, I'll start with you.
Dr. Anna, I got to go first again. What's funny? Ryan, you're not the only one who's done this. Like every show I've done, even on my own show today, we kind of skipped over Tampa. They brought in Anthony Duclair and Matt Dumba. Not saying Dumba like moves the needle on the blue line by any means, but they gave up like a 5th-round pick for him, like not much. And Duclair has been a pretty solid top 6 player in the last like 3 years in the NHL. Like I think getting him is such a big piece for a team that, especially me, people sleep on in the regular season. Like Kucherov's having an MVP year, and I feel like Tampa is still not even talked about as a legit contender in the Eastern Conference, right? Like it's just something that we do. Last year they lose in the first round, but the 3 years prior, they're in the Stanley Cup final. So, when you add a piece like Duclair up front, it makes them a little bit scarier. I know Sergachev is a big loss for the rest of the season on the back end, but if Vasilevsky finds a way to turn it on here, like I think I said I went on Game Notes on Friday, like after the deadline, or I guess like as the deadline was ending, and they asked me to like give a Western Conference final and Eastern Conference final. And I said Colorado, Edmonton in the West again, like we saw 2 years ago. And I think Tampa, Florida is a very legit conference final, which would be sick too. Like if that's the 4 teams remaining, sign me up. I think that'd be unreal.
Yeah, that would be really interesting. I definitely, with Tampa Bay, how successful they've been the last like 4 years, even making the playoffs last year, I still would say that's a relatively successful season. But I think this year, the biggest thing is the Vasilevsky factor. Like I think he's really taken a step back. I think even since he's been back from his injury, they've just been like, how many games have you watched Jonas Johansson play since Vasilevsky's been back? Like maybe I can count it on my hands, like 4 or 5. They've just been overloading him with starts. So I wonder how that will kind of move as we see the playoffs come closer. Anna, what about you? What team kind of you think really made moves that moved their needle at the deadline?
I actually really agree with Johnny because I feel like Anthony Duclair is so slept on. I know the one time we're on the same page, that was my favorite underrated move for sure. Like the guy's a 30 goal scorer and everyone forgets that. And he was super impactful for Florida. And now he's back on a team that he can actually do well on. And we saw that he had a 2-point performance in his debut for the Lightning, scored a goal. He's looking good. So that was definitely my favorite underrated move. I like Jake Allen to the New Jersey Devils as well. Like giving the Devils some pipe dream.
Come on.
I genuinely like that because now he was part of like a system in Montreal and now he's going to get a majority of the starts after he fixes his visa problems. I was wondering what they were going to do with him and Vanacek. New Jersey gets rid of Vanacek, so it's kind of his team right now, and I think it's the Devils aren't out of the mix. Okay, I'm not trying to like sell a pipe dream to anyone. They're not out of the mix just yet. And even if they don't make the postseason, like that's a guy I'm looking at to at least pick up some performances and showcase what he can do behind that roster because they still have a very, very solid team. And then, like I think overall, like Duclair, Jake Allen, and a sneaky pickup too, not in terms of a team future, but if you're looking at particular players on any night slate, Michael Bunting going back to Pittsburgh, guys, like he did not do well in Carolina because he was removed from the role that he succeeds in, which is playing with like the big name guys on that top line. But if he's playing with Sidney Crosby and he's replacing Jake Gensel there, like Michael Bunting on a nightly basis is a player you kind of want to keep your eye on because he might have like an individual career resurgence, even though Pittsburgh's kind of done so right now.
Yeah. What is it? One goal outscored 15-1 their last 3.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's a good time to bring up the fact that Bunting is a good change of scenery for him. They just got smoked like back-to-back times. But the one thing I'll say, Anna, about the Devils, Jake Allen, at least, I think Allen will be good too. Like when Binnington was in St. Louis, he was there as the backup. And I think he could help Dawes and Schmid. Like even if he is around for this season and the offseason, maybe they keep him around next year after they sign Jacob Markstrom, because that's definitely happening this year. I'm surprised that deal didn't end up getting done at the deadline, but I think that deal will get done this offseason. But the other thing I will say is you are selling people on a pipe dream because the Devils are in the playoffs. I'm afraid.
Remove the employer from Anna's comment, and then let's get the take.
Yeah, that's fair.
We'll see tonight. Johnny and I are going to be there. So
that's true. I do like the Devils tonight. I will say. I think that's all I'll say, John. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fair.
No comment there. No.
I don't. It's a trap game for the Rangers for sure.
I think it could be.
Biggest closeted Devils fans on the face of the planet. Too.
I'm not really closeted. I'm pretty open about it.
And okay, so obviously Vegas, like what they've done again with LTIR. Mark Stone, it seems like clockwork every year in March, he just gets hurt and he ends up on LTIR. Now, Alec Martinez is on LTIR as well to help with the Thomas Hertl situation, the Noah Hannafin contract as well. Obviously, they've got areas where teams are retaining salaries too. But do you think it's time now LTIR rules kind of start to change? Do you think there's an amendment that needs to be made in the NHL rules, or are you guys fine with just teams continuing to exploit this like fake rule? I guess that's kind of in the rule book. And I'll start with you.
Tough time to start with me because unfortunately I don't think I can say anything about that.
That's okay.
Vegas is definitely like taking advantage of what they can do with the way it is, but the rules are the rules. My other employer, the NHL, is now like clouding my take in this one right now.
Okay, got it.
My opinion about that.
Okay.
Wait, you gave one and they said they didn't like it or what?
No, I can't talk about that.
Oh,
okay.
So you say clowning?
Clouding.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, I mean, for me, like, I don't think it's a bad thing. Like, I have so many different opinions on it because I don't think a team should be punished for losing a player that's making like $8 million a year. Like, I like that you are available with that cap space. Like, once someone goes down, like, I'm sure Vegas would rather have their captain be healthy, right? Like,
yeah, obviously.
So they shouldn't miss out on that. But I think there has to be some sort of, and Colby explained it really well on our show today about how the salary cap shuts off in the playoffs. Like, players are not paid after April 15th, which I didn't know. So I think if maybe there's a way you just can implement the salary cap in the playoffs, I like maybe that's the way to do it. I don't know. Like, this is way above my pay grade. But again, like, I think every team just kind of wishes that their team would do the same thing. Like, Hedl went down this year. Ranger fans immediately were like, how can we get him out? How can we replace him? Trouba was hurt for like 2 to 3 weeks. Ranger fans were like, sit him out to the playoffs. You know what I mean? Like, it's just the don't hate the player, hate the game, or you know what I mean? Like, don't hate the GM, hate the rule. So I think Kelly McCrimmon's done a really good job recognizing that people want to play there, and they're going to figure out a way to make it work every year, and they have no reason not to. So I don't know. I mean, my opinion changes on it all the time, but I think, if the rule is there, abide by the rule, and then so be it. You can't really say anything about it.
Yeah, that's kind of how I've kind of seen it as well. Until they make any sort of change to it, then these GMs are free to do whatever they want. I think it's so funny that it's the same guys who tend to exploit it like every year. And you kind of, I wouldn't say have to get lucky, but like your guys do have to get hurt too. Like,
yeah.
Sergachev's, it's not like Sergachev's not hurt. Mark Stone and those guys, they're hurt. So it just ends up being a very tricky situation where everyone kind of just goes to blame Vegas. But
Well,
I
it was
guess
Tampa before Vegas. Like Kucherov,
that's what I
I
mean.
feel like
That's
missed
what
the
I
whole
mean.
regular season, right? And then came in the playoffs and was unreal. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And then one other team, obviously, that made a big move that I think a lot of people weren't necessarily prepared for was Colorado. Getting making that trade for Casey Middlestat. Getting Duheim from Minnesota as well. What do you guys think of Colorado and the fact that maybe Landeskog comes back in the playoffs? Do you think that I know, Johnny, you said that we're gonna see Colorado Edmonton, but do you see them going back to this Cup final this year and beating a team like Edmonton?
Well, I think what they say yesterday that Landeskog won't play till like May minimum.
Okay.
I think, earliest. I think, which is still probably second round.
Yep.
So they'll have to get through the first round without him. But I've said it all year. Like I think the West runs through Colorado. I still do, even with the moves that Vegas made. When you watch all these teams play, like nobody skates at the pace of Colorado. And it's funny, like, I talked to a lot of the Ranger players. I went in their room after they played Colorado here, and like, I'm not going to name names, but like two guys were like, dude, I'm gassed. Like those guys are so fucking fast. Like, you could just see it on the players' faces that Colorado's a different animal. And when they go add pieces to the puzzle that, like, again, aren't the bigger names, but just fill out your lineup and make you even deeper. Like, I feel like people don't know a lot about Brandon Duhaime. I played against him in college. The guy's a fucking animal. Like he is so big, so strong. Like, was a difference maker in Minnesota, but like, a good fourth line PKer kind of piece. And Middlestat, I don't know. Are we calling him an elite second line center? I don't know, but maybe he can get there with the ice time and with the skill around him. Sean Walker, I think, is a huge add in the back end for them. Again, a good depth piece to that blue line, which to me is the best blue line in the entire NHL. And then Jakob Trenin, like another just fucking beast. I don't know if I can curse on here. And I just
You're good.
Okay, just making sure because I kind of just like slipped that out. But yeah, I think Colorado right now, the only question mark is goaltending. But when they won the cup, Darcy Kemper wasn't perfect. So I have no reason to believe that they can't do it again. Like if I had gun to my head, like pick one team that's going to win the cup, it's Colorado.
Okay. Anna, do you kind of see it the same way? Do you see that the West runs through Colorado like Johnny?
I think
you can't agree with me twice.
I can, and I won't. Avs are a good squad. Like I can't complain, and I really do like their moves. Casey Middlestat, especially, he's like the best player on the Buffalo Sabres this year, guys. I feel like that flies under the radar too. He was the best performer on that team, and that just adds a lot. Because for me, the concern was I thought Colorado was really top heavy, right? So it's like in the postseason, down the stretch, you never know what's going to happen, and it's like the Nathan McKinnon show over there. He has a point pretty much every home game this year. Rantanen, and it's like Nichushkin missed some time. Now he's back, which is like good for the Avs overall. But one big blow to like McKinnon and Rantanen, and I was like, man, this team's going to be in a little bit of trouble because those guys kind of carry that squad up front. But getting Casey Middlestat makes me feel a little bit easier on that. I do agree that they have a phenomenal blue line, like Johnny said, so they're a good squad. But I don't know, like I feel like
Nichushkin too, right? He's coming back.
He just came back. Yeah.
Oh, he is back. Yeah.
He is back, so that adds a little bit of security. But for me, to be honest, like I would not even be shocked if we got the exact same conference finals we had last year. Like, I would not be shocked. I would not be surprised if it was Vegas and Dallas and Carolina and Florida. Like, I think there's a very decent chance that it's those 4-2 teams again. I think Vegas is the one that's standing out to me in the West a little bit. Obviously, they've bolstered up their lineup. Winnipeg, too. Guys, do not sleep on the Winnipeg Jets. They are probably the best equipped team, top to bottom, to go on a deep run. Like, they have 4 solid lines.
I totally agree.
Their bottom 6 is so sneaky good, and they're putting up points on a nightly basis. They have some good blue liners, and they have Connor Hellebuck, who's having a career year for himself right now, one heck of a season. So the Winnipeg Jets also sticking out to me, Edmonton, obviously, but Carolina, guys, they were my preseason pick to win the Stanley Cup. I got a little bit concerned with all their goaltending issues and everything that was going on. But after the trade deadline, they're finally not just happy with their group. They added the pieces they needed, and they look deadly right now. So if there's one year for the Hurricanes to win the Stanley Cup, I think it's this year.
Yeah, I've now wagered on the Canes to win the Cup, I think 4 times now throughout the season, 4 different areas. And I'm very happy now the way the team looks like. I think Kuznetsov is the most underrated move that, like, obviously it's Evgeny Kuznetsov, and a lot of people obviously know the track record that he had with Washington and stuff. But I think this year really hurt his wouldn't say his credibility or maybe just his household name as a whole, because he's really bad. Obviously went into the NHLPA Players Assistance Program, came back, got waived, and now Carolina got him. But you saw in those first 2 games, like he hit the post yesterday against Calgary. He set up a goal their other game that they played early on Friday or Thursday that ended up getting called back. I think this Carolina team's really well equipped. And I do agree with you. And I think that there's a really good chance we see the Jets in the Western Conference Final. I mean, you have Nemestikov as your 4th line center. That's nuts. He's been a 2nd line center his whole career. So I think, even Iafallo's on that 4th line too. Now you add Tyler Toffoli into the mix, Sean Monahan, 2 guys that
Gabe Velarde back yet. So like the winner
exactly.
Something else.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. So the last thing we'll end on then, you guys have kind of alluded to it, but your Stanley Cup final, who you guys have matching up. And I'll go with you first since it's been Johnny Day all day.
You know what? I rarely deviate from what I said in the preseason. I think I'll stick with this even now. I had Dallas and Carolina winning. So I'll stick with Dallas, Carolina.
Southern final.
Again.
Last year, I guess is like Florida is definitely South, but I don't know if like anyone considers it.
Vegas is everything's South compared to Canada. Ryan's sitting up here, Toronto.
That's very true. Shit.
Man, I don't know. Like my pick to win the cup this year was Edmonton. And I still like, I don't know. Like I want to say I believe in them, but it's hard to. So I still think it's Colorado for me out of the West and the East. Like, it's so hard to not pick Florida, but I feel I'm gonna say it's Colorado Tampa again.
Okay.
I feel like everyone. Wow. I feel like the sleeping on Tampa thing, like Stamkos' contract stuff, and maybe this is one last go. Like I don't know. It's probably not a good pick, but.
Well, I was just about to say it's going to be so funny when Tampa misses the playoffs.
You think they're going to miss? Yeah.
There's a chance.
Yeah.
Against him, he goes, "You think they're going to miss?" Yeah.
There's a chance. There's a chance.
Yeah, there's a chance. I don't know. I just feel like we do it every year, and now because they didn't win the cup last year and lost in the first round, we're doing it again. Like still a dynasty, pretty much. So
it is a dynasty. So I definitely will give you that. I just think maybe we're at the other end of the dynasty at this point. I think it'll be Edmonton, Carolina rematch. Yeah, rematch of 06-07, I think it was when these two teams played, when the Edmonton came out of the woodwork to go to the finals. But
I think 05-06. 05-06.
05-06, I think you're right.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Fernando Pisani.
Who wins?
Fernando Pisani. Who wins? I think Carolina. I mean, I've bet on them 4 or 5 times. I enjoy the money.
Down in Raleigh, guys.
Yeah, exactly. That would be awesome. That would be awesome.
That suck.
I hate Canes fans.
Okay. Why?
They're my least favorite fan base by far.
Okay. All right. That's fine. They're nice. Yeah. Are they nice to you, Anna?
They're very nice to me.
There we go. That we just found out the problem.
She's like the poster of Canes fans.
Yeah, but I covered the Devils, so that says a lot that they're still nice to me despite that.
That's true.
That's a good point. All right. That is it from us today. Thank you, Anna and Johnny, for joining me for this NHL Trade Deadline recap, kind of second half preview afterwards. Really appreciate you guys coming on. For everyone out there, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Follow these guys on Twitter, Instagram, all their social medias. Those will be in the bio below. And I'll see you guys in the next video.